Hey guys, MCU Collector here with the final video in the Hasbro Marvel Legends series Spider-Man Wave 11 Kingpin Build-A-Figure with the Build-A-Figure itself, the Kingpin Wilson Fisk himself. Awesome that we're getting a new one. I know I've kind of seen the Toy Biz mess around with that, and I was actually surprised at how decent of a figure that was. But the proportions of the legs were a little bit funky. You know, he had a huge belly and then his legs weren't as big. It was kind of weird. So this is kind of the definitive Kingpin figure. Now, when I was a kid, I actually had the Toy Biz Kingpin figure from the animated series line. And I love that figure. It didn't really move around a whole lot, but it was the Kingpin and it was awesome. So it's nice to have a nice large Kingpin Build-A-Figure. So let's get right to it and build him. So first, I always like to start with the torso, and again, that is a separate jacket piece that just sits on in there, and it'll stay in place once we put the legs on. But first, the arms, excuse me. First, let's do the legs. So we'll make sure we have the left leg, and you just kind of force it on there, so no loud clicking noise or anything. You just have to force it into place. You can already tell that he's going to be pretty large. Let's get the arms in here. Again, no click. I always like it when I hear it click, so I know that it's in there nice and tight. And I am not hearing that at all with these figures. Let's see. Let's try that one again. Nope, you just have to force it in and it just sits in there. Now we have two different head choices. First, I'm going to go with the calm head. Let's get that peg up there high. And pop it in. And there is the Kingpin Build-A-Figure, and this thing is awesome. Wow, what a great Build-A-Figure, what a great figure overall. That looks great. I really like the way that looks. Now, before we get in closer, let's take a look at his articulation, because it is fairly limited, but actually some good articulation to it. So he can look down slightly, he can look up, so that's great. Shoulders go out all the way and actually slightly above. So great articulation there. Full rotation, of course. There is only a single elbow. However, there is a nice swivel at the elbow. So you get a lot of good motion in there. But you get a very limited bend, as you can see. Now the wrists swivel and they do hinge on both sides. You get a diaphragm joint that doesn't want to cooperate with me here. So you get a swivel at that diaphragm joint and it crunches. You really have to work at that crunch. Not really getting a whole lot. Definitely not moving back. I'm not getting him down at all. But the good thing, such a large character, he isn't going to have that kind of range of motion in there. Legs go out that far apart, so from here to there, it's not a whole lot. I know you get the upper thigh cut because that's where the leg connects. You get some decent movement in there. Can kick out so far, but you know, being a big guy, I'm sure he's not doing a whole lot of high kicks. Now you get a single jointed knee similar to the elbow where it's kind of ball rolled into there, so you're only going to get that much, and it is a pretty ugly looking knee joint, but you get a nice swivel in there. And then the foot has a little tiny bit of motion in the hinge. There is some kind of ankle pivot, but his pant leg comes over the foot, so you're not going to get a whole lot of motion in there. But if you just have Kingpin standing there, he looks menacing already as it is. So now let's take a closer look. So looking closely, look at that head sculpt. The paint apps on this face are perfect. Even though it's basically just the eyebrows and the eyes, but they look really good. The rest of the figure is solid as well, because you get a nice bright gold for the buttons on his vest. You get a nice purple for the handkerchief. It's actually like a metallic purple or sateen or silk. The same with his tie, matching purple. And then he's wearing a black shirt, which you could see under his vest, and his sleeves, right under the sleeves to his coat. You see the black. Other than that, there's no other paint really, and then his shoes are done nicely with a nice texture design on his fancy shoes. So that comes out looking really good. But what an awesome looking figure. Now let's take this head off. Whoops. Let's pop on the menacing head. And now he's angry Wilson Fisk. And that one looks great as well. I'll be displaying my figure with this head. But this one does look great as well. And I had talked about the cool thing with his mouth. So he has the open jaw in there. And you can really see in there. You got the teeth sculpted. You got his tongue sculpted and everything. And the trick to how Hasbro does that is if you pop the head off and look inside of it, you have a separate piece that's glued inside there. So basically, you know, when they're sculpting the head, they just kind of leave a hole there for his mouth, and then the detail and everything is in a separate piece that they do in there. So like the Sabretooth figure, the Puma figure have a jaw, a secondary jaw piece that's glued on. They did that on the inside here because the head is so large, they have the space to do that, and they don't need to glue on a second piece where you noticeably see the seams. Red Goblin is pretty good because you don't really see the seams on this guy either, but those are examples of figures that are doing that. And I think it's great that they do that because we get a lot of awesome detail that we hadn't really gotten before. So it's nice. It's a nice touch by Hasbro. Looking closely at his cane, you can see it's just a black cane with some gold there, and then a nice translucent clear diamond there at the top of it. And that looks really good. So here we have our Kingpin Build-A-Figure, and what an awesome figure this is. I think it's going to be very hard to top this Build-A-Figure this year. And it could be just because of character selection, but the figure itself just looks amazing. I remember seeing this at Comic-Con last year, and this is just like what we saw there. It is awesome. I really like it. Pop this head back on. Yeah, that's my Kingpin. There it is. Now, one thing you do want to be careful about is this coat is done in the rubbery material, but it kind of feels, I don't want to say it's a texture, but it's the way it feels. You just want to be careful with it because you could tell that this is something that can get dirty very easily. It's not smooth like the Lizard's lab coat was. It's a little rough, so that I think will show dirt pretty easily. So you want to be careful with that. But an awesome Build-A-Figure. Now let's go through the rest of the figures in the wave and rank them. Okay guys, so here are all 8 figures as part of the wave. And again, typically if you follow this channel, you'll know that I don't include the Build-A-Figure when ranking a wave, because in most cases, again, the Build-A-Figure is always going to be the far superior figure, and that's no different with this wave especially. So in my ranking, I ranked the 6-armed Spider-Man number 1. I know, everyone hates this figure, but it's my favorite figure of the wave. I love it. It's awesome. Number 2, surprisingly, and I didn't know this was going to happen, is this Puma figure. I really like this figure. That head sculpt is amazing, and a pretty interesting design. I really like the way the figure came out. Number 3, I'm going to go with Night Thrasher. Still a very good looking figure. Had it been all shiny black, the legs, he may have taken the number 2 spot, but still a very good figure. Number 3, Red Goblin, only because the interesting character choice, the design of it is pretty cool. That head sculpt is amazing. Number 5 goes to the Silver Sable, because that is a pretty cool looking figure. Number 6 goes to Black Cat because That's not my favorite design of Black Cat, even though that is a very good figure. And then number 7 goes to the Symbiote Spider-Man, because that's not my favorite Symbiote Spider-Man design. That is still a good figure as well. That's my ranking. Let me know how you guys would rank the wave down in the comments below. If you throw in Kingpin into the mix, Kingpin would be the number 1 and would take the top spot very, very easily. But if you guys have any questions with any of the figures in the wave, let me know down in the comments below. Hit that thumbs up if you guys liked the video. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you for watching. Hasbro Marvel Legends Series Spider-Man Wave 11 Kingpin Build-A-Figure. Awesome, awesome wave. Awesome way to start out 2019.